doing a podcast with Leanne Lang. I'm guesting on her show.
So once upon a time, she was a World Cup level athlete. Then she quit, then gained 85 pounds in a year, got married, then divorced a year later. She hated her job, she hated her life, she just kind of gave up on things and hit rock bottom. I didn't need to make this up because this is exactly how she describes herself, and definitely part of the bio that she has for her podcast, Elisa Unfiltered. So I'm so excited that after I had done her podcast, she's agreed to be able to come here and be on mine for episode 23 of Living Your Life with Leanne Lang. The podcast brought to you by Extension Marketing, and for more information, of course, you can head to extensionmarketing.com. Elisa, so great. I'm sorry, I had to kind of go with that bio because I think that best describes what we're in for the next hour.
Yeah.
Yeah?
I 100%. Absolutely.
Okay.
Thanks for having me, too. This is fun.
This is really nice. And this is about 15 years in the making, I would think,
yeah.
right?
Something like that.
I first interviewed you when I was a sports anchor.
Yeah.
I think we were called the New RO still back in those days. And I remember covering you with this beautiful, energetic, kind of gung-ho, zest for life athlete who was making your mark on the elite Canadian circuit. Like you were at that elite level for freestyle mogul skiing, and you were about to embark on kind of like your World Cup career, I think.
Yeah, I was I either just made the national development team or I was like on Ontario team competing at a very high level when we first met, yeah. And then preceding that, we did like a few cool interviews segments for TV. It was really fun, actually. It's so cool.
I liked you. I remember you because it was interesting years later when I was watching you kind of, at that World Cup level. I remember going, I remember this girl. And I was so glad that you had made it because you kind of, the way we had done our videos, you were training, like you're off the hill training. Your land training was insane.
Yeah. The dry land was definitely at that elite level, you could say. And it's fun because like people don't realize how much work goes on off the slopes. They just kind of see the end result. So it was really fun to work with you because you showed that side. It was very cool.
We're going to get to, because your life has gone through like one crazy roller coaster, but I do want to start kind of with where your development happened, because I think we're much more aware of freestyle mogul skiing pretty much since like the Vancouver Olympics, when we started to kind of see real big continuous success on the Olympic side of things, because people aren't really associated with World Cup. They watch the Olympics,
sure,
and they don't really know the sport until every 4 years kind of comes about. So how did you get involved? Like, what was the intro for you?
The intro was my family used to have a chalet up at Tremblant. When we got rid of that place, all the kids were really upset. So my parents were trying to find a fit for us in Ottawa, and our neighbors just happened to be part of the Fortune Freestyle Club. And my mom thought it was a good fit for me, and I was really reluctant. I didn't want to do it, but I went into a weekend program, and I found sort of like a passion.
Were you a good skier?
I was a good skier.
Was it because you were a good skier that she thought this would work for you?
Yeah, so we were a family. I grew up skiing as a family, so we had a chalet at Tremblant for years and years, and we skied we were weekenders. Oh yeah. So, and at this time, I think I was like 14. I was kind of late when it comes to sport development. Like the long-term athlete development plan for a World Cup mogul skier kind of starts around like 8 or 9, skiing in a structured program. I didn't really do that. I just kind of skied with my brother in the woods. And so, I mean, there wasn't like high hopes for me or anything in that intro year, but they had a really good program at Fortune at the time, and I excelled very quickly. I do have a gymnastics background, which helped with motor skills and acrobatics, because freestyle skiing has a huge acrobatic component.
I would have known, like, where were you a gymnast? Because
Corona. I was a gymnast
How
at
is
Corona,
that possible?
But I was at...
if for anyone who has listened to any of my podcasts, my mom owns and runs and started Corona Gym Club 45 years ago.
Yeah.
So I would have seen you then.
You probably would have. I was there probably... I was very young. I was like 6... I don't know, probably 7, 8, 9. 7, 8, 9 when I was there. 10, I made pre-competitive. And then... that was kind of like one of the most traumatizing moments of my life. And I talk about it in my podcast too, because in order for me to keep going in the competitive program, I had to do the splits to the ground, like to have my pubic bone touch the ground. And I tried, and they gave me like a window to get there, but I'm naturally unflexible. So I actually didn't, I got kicked out of the competitive
You did
program.
not get kicked out of the program.
That's how my 9-year-old brain remembers it.
It was probably suggested to you that with your amazing athletic ability that you find a sport that might be better suited for your style of athleticism. Yes. Is that a better one?
Yes, exactly. That's verbatim what they told me.
I'm thinking I might have, if you were in that program at that time, I might have just been heading to university. Because I'm thinking
it was probably like it was 1988.
Oh, no.
In 1987, 88, 89, somewhere in there, in the late 80s.
Oh, no. I can say that I was still happily here in high school during those years.
Yeah.
Right? No, I was elementary. No. Gosh, you're an 81 birthday.
81.
Okay, I'm 75. Okay, so it's not that bad. No.
But then I definitely learned a lot of skill that helped me to advance very quickly in the sport of mogul. So I basically went from like a club athlete at Fortune Freestyle to a national team athlete within 4 years, which is like very sort of unheard of.
Yeah, I was going to say you never really see something like that, especially happening later in a career, right? Like I can see it maybe if you were 10 and by the time you were 14.
Yeah.
But you're starting to do this at 14. So what were the biggest obstacles? I mean, you were a skier and you used back road. I can just picture you on Tremblant. I can probably picture exactly where you went off the mountain. Like what was the training then or the development like over those years?
Yeah, it was...
Because you're flipping. I mean, it's mogul, and then you're doing a back layout or a back flip in between the...
So at the time, the sport of freestyle hadn't evolved into inverts yet. Okay. It was illegal. We didn't even wear helmets when I first made the national team. Like, it really evolved quickly. The sport progressed quite fast, and we were sort of pioneers. Like, my generation on the team, we pioneered all of the crazy stuff. We led the way for inverts, for pushing the sport to the next level. So I mean, in those years of development, I do believe that my 4 years on the national development team is also included in that, because that's where I really got a taste or a sense of what I had to do and what I needed to do. I was a little bit fortunate back in the club and provincial years because there were not a lot of females in the sport at the time. So this might sound bad, but like it didn't take much to get to that next level. Once I was on the national team and competing nationally or interprovincially, that's when I started to really face adversity in the sport.
You were like, oh, okay, there are other girls doing this. Yes. I'm not just oh my God, you should check out this chick. She's so good on the slopes. You realized there was others around the country that were striving for the same thing.
Yeah, and I mean, in this sport, it was kind of interesting because there was this interesting balance between me being a slightly naive and me being super passionate about sport. So I didn't really know what I was getting myself into until I was pretty far advanced. And when I realized, oh my gosh, I could go to the Olympics, or I could ski on the World Cup team, or I'm meeting all of these amazing athletes from all around the world. I was already pretty into it at that point. So I think to be a successful mogul skier, you do have to have a little bit of crazy in you, a little bit of that naive, you can't think about it too much because it is so intense. It's dangerous. You're moving really high speeds. You're training really hard, but at the same time, you need to be very smart. So it's a balance between that,
Well, was it learning? I mean, the physical side of it is I look at the aerodynamics of the sport, or the knee movement and the side to side, and the pounding that the legs take. But then I picture what it's like for you at the top, looking down at the hill you're about to go down, and you see these moguls, and then you've got to time it for the jump. Where is where's the mental preparation to deal with the fear? Because I'm assuming there's got to be fear when you're heading down like that.
There is and there isn't. It depends. Every course is different. Every jump, landing, takeoff, all of the components of the course change week to week from traveling to each event or wherever the events are, or even your training courses. Weather dependent, snow conditions, all that stuff kind of factors in. But the point is that you train and you do enough repetition that you're not afraid anymore. Like you, basically, my thoughts at the top of the course for the end of my career, like it did, my mentality evolved as I had more experience competing, was that I knew the second I pushed out of the gate that my body would be able to do what it needed to do.
Muscle memory.
Yes.
Repetition.
Yeah.
I often found the same way, especially when I was on balance beam.
Yes.
You know, when I'm about to embark on 3 connecting flips in a row going backwards on the 4-inch balance beam, and you just have to go in your head, my body knows how to do this. It's done it thousands and thousands of times that you're going to land it at the end of all that. So I totally see that. I also see how it took you being towards the end of your career, the maturity and the understanding of what that mental preparation. Yes. It wasn't like you had it at 14. It took towards the end of your career to have that.
When I was 14, who knows? I was probably thinking about boys, about, you know,
I'm gonna
my
look
equipment.
so
Do I look
cool?
I know, exactly. Something along those lines. But then, you know, in reality, mogul skiing, the course is about 20, you're skiing between 20 and 30 seconds, just depending on how long. I would say more, for females, it's more like 25 to 30 seconds. That's not a lot of time. You're moving between, you know, 40 and 50 kilometers an hour. You're doing 2 aerial maneuvers. Your thoughts are you have to be super precise with what you're thinking. So I did, you know, visualize. I like to visualize in slow motion. That was something that really worked for me. I know there's a lot of visualization techniques. I would do the run over the course of like 2 minutes in my mind beforehand, because once it's go time, you have that adrenaline. I like it's like free adrenaline. I loved that. I lived for that rush. But yeah, if you're not trained to, you know, think about, well, for me, what worked for me was just to have, you know, 3 moments to be conscious of, and the rest of it's all feel based. Yeah.
It's neat to see that. How long did you spend? I mean, you have you have national titles under you, and you have a World Cup title underneath you.
Yeah.
What was it like getting to that World Cup level? And I don't think people understand, like, you're traveling, you're competing, you're with Team Canada, you're with your coaches. Like, can you take us through that? Because I think we put it onto like this hierarchy, right? Like that it's like this golden ticket, and yet I don't think people appreciate that it's not, you know, you're not living like NHL all-star players, right? Like
no,
you're living in hotel rooms and traveling in vans. Like, take us through some of that.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, it is, there is some glamour into being a national team World Cup gold medal winning athlete, if you want to look at it that way. It's all about perspective. I appreciate all sports, all amateur sports specifically, because you're not being paid the big bucks to, you know, do the big things. That is changing a little bit. Back in my day, no. However, yeah, I just saw myself as a regular kid, a regular teenager growing up, a regular woman in her early 20s. I mean, I had a really close group of girlfriends and really tight family, so I was grounded the entire time. So I never really I never thought I was more than.
Okay. Were you friends with the girls on the circuit?
Yes and no.
Okay.
Yes and no. I did connect with. Well, I mean, you're living with them 24/7. I mean, I was on the road 200, almost 300 days a year back then. Like, I was never home.
Where are you? Okay, so
where? Yeah. So basically, the fiscal year or whatever, the training year starts essentially April the 1st. So the last event is somewhere in March, and then we have like a little tiny break. April 1st, team selections happen, and then, you know, April's kind of our transition month in the term of our year. And then, you know, we start our general preparation in May. So we're in Whistler basically May, June, July, August, September, or at least we were back then. Now the team travels a little bit more. They go to Australia. There's the snow conditions a little bit better there in the summer because it's winter there. So it's winter like snow. We were in Quebec a lot at the water ramps there. We went to Lake Placid. I was in Park City, Utah for water ramping. So that's when you train your acrobatics into the water. So it's, you're like basically skiing down this like plastic bristle and going off jumps. And
do you like that?
I loved it. Yeah. Well, jumping was my strength, and that's where I pushed the sport, was in jumping. And so all the way through to September, October, in Canada, there's not a whole lot of snow that's skiable. We oftentimes found random glaciers that they would cat ski us in, and we could build moguls. It was kind of crazy.
Really?
Yes. That was leading into 2006 Torino Games. But we were in Switzerland in October, and then November, December in the States, Colorado. This is all training. So we literally were training 40 hours a week.
Okay. That's it. You're not in Colorado, sitting by the cafes looking at the mountainsides.
No. I mean, our days off, oftentimes I wouldn't even get out of bed because I was so dead. I just needed to rest. But yeah, that's the thing. I've definitely, I have some very cool passports. They're full. I've been all over the world competing, from Japan to, in Canada here, we competed a lot. I mean, we are Canadian after all. Switzerland, Austria, all over the place. And it's funny because, I know airports really well. I know minivans and buses really well. And I know little tiny ski towns really, really well. Otherwise, it's kind of a blur. It's kind of a blur. I didn't really I was traveling all over the world, but I wasn't traveling. Were you able to take a moment to reflect on where you were? Because I think your personality now, you'd sit on top of that mountaintop, do a yoga, and take in the serenity for an hour. And that's not what you were able to do back then. No, but my focus was a lot different than it was very narrow. I was really trying to achieve a goal of going to the Olympics. That's what I wanted to do since I was a kid. My Olympic dreams in gymnastics was cut off short very early, but yeah, so I definitely had the blinders on for, I would say, 10 years.
That's a long time.
It's a long time. I didn't see anything but my goals in skiing.
Okay. So what happens when you're 10 years focused on one narrow, very slim chance, because not many people in the world get to experience an Olympic Games?
Yeah, so every 4 years, a maximum of 4 female mogul skiers go to the Olympics. So my lead up was, I guess what happened was I just didn't handle the pressure the way, in the best way possible. My lead up was I put a lot of pressure on myself. It's interesting because now when I reflect on it, I really feel as though I had a fear of success. I wasn't sure that I wanted to be successful after all. So I would sabotage myself a lot. If there was a big event and I was training really, really well, something would always happen to, hinder my performance, or I'd put myself in a position that I would hinder my performance. I had no idea I was doing this at the time. And even if 20,000 people told me, I wouldn't have even been able to hear it until now, till I've been out of it for so many years and I can look back. So basically what happened was I was the second ranked female in Canada going into the Olympic year. And the qualifications were you had to use 4 results to go to the Olympics. So it's basically an accumulation of 4 results over 18 months. Mm-hmm. So it's basically 2 winter competitive seasons. Any Canadian female World Cup athlete could use 4 results. And I was ranked second going in. And my first event of the season was in Tignes, France, and I qualified second going into the final round. So I was like, this is my event. This is going to be my Olympic berth. And I had a fabulous run. I landed the bottom jump, and for some reason, I to this day have no idea what happened. I guess I landed in a little. They chopped the landing, mm-hmm. so to make it soft. I landed in a piece of snow that was a little catchy. We call them snow snakes. It held onto my foot a little bit, and I just deviated out of my line. I didn't fall. I didn't make spectacle or anything like that. I just kind of deviated a little bit, and it was enough to bump me down into 12th place, which is the last place in the final because top 12 go.
So you went from feeling like you had just...
Yeah, and I was like, oh, well, that was stupid. Okay, so I had like 3 or 4 events left to qualify, and each one just like ticked me down. So I just went from 2nd to 3rd to 4th, and they're taking 4 women. At this point, my parents had tickets to the Olympics. They had flights to Italy. Everyone was going. Like, there was big... I had a newspaper article. It was called The Road to Torino. I was getting interviewed. I was all over the news in Ottawa. And because there's not a lot of mogul skiers that come from Ottawa, right? So, like, it was kind of cool. Yeah. And then the last event, it was in this place called Madonna, Italy. It was very cool. And I actually was having a nervous breakdown. The top of the course, I was not thinking anything but the Olympics. It was like the worst mindset of all time. And I knew that I needed to think about the process in which I could achieve the outcome. And that's kind of where I was like pulling my mind to, is like, you need to take a step back and really just ski for fun. Like, do what you've always done. This is ridiculous, Elisa. Like, holy cow. So I actually had an amazing performance in Madonna. It was probably the best run I had done of the week. I needed to come, all I needed was a top 12. And I was like, I make finals every week. Like, all I need is a top 12 to go to the Olympics. This is my time. I was super nervous. I crossed the finish line, and like the relief inside of me, like, I don't even know if anyone can appreciate that, like, relief of like, oh my God, you did it. However, freestyle skiing is a judged sport. And so the judges, you know, it's not like they disagreed with my run. They didn't necessarily score me like they normally do for the quality of my turns and my jumps and my speed combined. And I ended up 13th. So I basically like missed going to the Olympics by 1 position. And that was basically the beginning of the end.
And here comes the podcast. This podcast is brought to you by Extension Marketing. They are a new breed of marketing agency that acts as your virtual marketing department, designing and implementing cost-effective marketing strategies that will grow your business. I can speak to this personally, as I've been using the Extension Marketing team to help me launch and grow my business. Founder Pat Whalen has been a lifesaver for me, a genuine coach, guiding me along the way into uncharted territory. Tell them you're a friend of the show and receive a free 1-hour consultation. Check them out at extensionmarketing.com. Oh, because that was the trigger.
That was the trigger.
You know, you've got parents with tickets and flights to Torino and to watch their daughter compete at the Olympic Games, and you miss it by a spot. And to say the world comes kind of crumbling, crashing.
Yeah.
It was almost like a slow avalanche.
Well,
of
it was slow. It was like slow motion, if I can say that, because I actually, what happened in the next like 12 to 24 hours was just so surreal to me. It was like a movie. It was like a scene out of a movie in my mind when I like replay what happened. So I saw the score sheet and I like literally like, I think my like soul left my body. And I think a part of me literally died when I saw that, and I knew that I wasn't going. And I kind of like zombie walked back to my room, and I there wasn't, I don't know how I came to this decision to lay in my bed and watch episodes of Seinfeld, because that's what I did. I like didn't talk to anybody. I just like literally went into my room and opened my laptop and watched Seinfeld episodes randomly for hours. I can't even tell you how long I watched those for. I know I had a roommate. She came in and out. She was going to the Olympics. We didn't really talk about it. I don't think she knew what to say. We just kind of like, it was like one of those moments.
Yeah. It would have been hard for her, right? Because
I'm
assuming would have trained and competed and traveled, and here she is trying not to. I mean, she's wanting to celebrate her achievement and watching you with such a misfortune. It would have been hard.
Yeah, so I got a knock on my door at about 10 p.m. or 11 p.m. It was like in the evening, late evening, and my it was my coach, and it was the first time I talked to him since I left the ski hill. And he told me that I needed to pack up my stuff immediately because there was a bus taking us all to the Milan airport that was leaving in 45 minutes or an hour or something like that. And I was like, what? I'm like, Milan airport? Like, what the hell? I don't have a ticket home. I don't have, like, I can't go to the airport right now. It's the middle of the night. And it was interesting because he didn't talk to me about the performance at all. He didn't say anything. He just told me to pack up my stuff. And I said, why do I have to leave? And he told me because he didn't want the non-Olympians to pull down the Olympic team. He didn't want our moods to spoil the celebration of them going to the Olympics. Now, the Olympics were like 2.5, almost 3 weeks away at this point, but they just wanted all the riffraff to leave, and I wasn't part of the team, so they like literally kicked me out. It was like the most outrageous thing I've ever experienced in my life. It basically like was a giant building block to the turn of my career. Because yeah, I went on this bus. They dropped me off at the Milan airport, and I didn't know what to do.
Have you broken down crying yet? Like, have you
had
like a full release?
I actually don't remember ever crying. I know it happened, but in my brain, I can't remember a time where I actually cried about it. I like was in like this shock. I got to the airport. I was like, I guess I go to a ticket counter, and this woman, she was amazing because there was no flights back to Ottawa. It was like basically 3:30 in the morning. We got to the airport at 3:30 in the morning. The ticket counter opened like at 5 a.m. or something like that when I went. And so we didn't sleep all night. I was like dying. I looked like I probably looked like a disaster person. I don't know. So this lady was so helpful. She like found me, she routed me all throughout the world, and she got me home. And the one-way ticket cost me just over $2,000. And it was the old like printout ticket. Remember those old airline tickets? And she like, with like the carbon fiber, you remember those? Or carbon copy paper? She like gave me my ticket. I still have it because it was like, I don't know, it was symbolic for some reason. I have an attachment to that ticket because that moment was just like, okay, I'm going home. And that's what happened. And so when I got home, there wasn't like this big celebration, me in the airport with my...
That you had envisioned.
That I envisioned. Yeah. It was just my poor mom. My mom, she was dying. Oh. Anyways, so that was it. I went home, and I didn't hear from my coaches or anyone within Canadian Freestyle for almost 6 weeks. It was like unbelievable, the lack of support, and I didn't know how to handle this. I needed support. That's exactly what I needed. I just got a message saying like, why aren't you going to Japan? Because Japan was the next series of World Cup events post Olympics. And I was just like, are you kidding me right now? Like, I'm done. I basically retired on the spot and went into a serious depression. Like, it was a very dark time. I like lost my identity because that's all I wanted to do. And I at this point I was like 24 years old or 25, I guess. And I didn't want to go another 4 years. I didn't think this was 2006 Torino Games was like my Olympic year, and I blew it. And I knew that I blew it, and I blamed myself, and I lost my identity. So I had nothing. Like, I didn't know what to do. That was it. All I knew to do was to lay in bed and eat. That's what I did. I laid in bed and I ate and I drank alcohol, and I tried to escape with alcohol, and I drank a lot every single day. And that's when I don't know. I basically made a vow that I would never do another squat again. I would never go to the gym. I basically hated mogul skiing, like immediately. I hated.
Did you watch the Olympics?
I did. I watched the Olympics. That's a good question. A lot of people ask me that because I had to. I had, like, that was the one piece of, like, sanity for me. Like, I had to watch it. My friend Jennifer Heil, she won the Olympics that year, and I had to watch it for her, maybe. Mm-hmm. After she won, like, if you ever watch the YouTube clip, like, her eyeballs in the gate, like, oh my God, I was, like, dying watching it. When she crosses the line and sees that she wins, she, like, lets out that, like, that scream of just relief, and it's so powerful, it's so moving. Like, even when I watch it now, like, I feel like it was that day watching it. Anyways, it was interesting because Jen was she won the Olympics. She was my friend on the team. She called me the next day. So she just won the Olympics. She had media all over the place, and she found time to just see if I was okay. And she called me from Italy for, like, I don't know. We only talked for like 5 minutes or something. It wasn't a long conversation, but it was just a nice little check-in. And just goes to show, like, her personality is just so caring and generous and amazing. But yeah.
I think it also goes to show, I think people don't realize when you're training and living years of traveling and training and with similar goals and similar dreams, like, there's a bond, there's an attachment, even when you're competing against that person day in and day out, right? Because you have to keep in mind, you were a competitor. She was one of those 4 spots. Yeah. But I think any athlete, when they see a competitor down, like, or, you know, crumbling the way you were, like, you have a sense, because there's also a fear too that could have been anyone. You know, oftentimes, right? Sometimes you have a great day out there, sometimes you don't. But it's nice to know that she did that. Yeah. You know, like, and I remember those moments too. So you have this 5 minutes of feeling, okay, this teammate of mine is checked in. But as soon as that event's over and the Olympics continue on, you're back to drinking and eating and staying in bed.
Yeah. So that was, she basically just helped me to validate my feelings in a one way, shape, or form. Like, but also validate that I am that I'm suffering, and that I was, you know, people don't really talk about the athletes that just miss the games. Like, every single sport, every single game, there are a handful of people that are in that position. Like 4th, 5th, 6th place in Canada. Like, that's pretty freaking good.
Welcome to my life.
Yeah.
I've always felt like it's like on, like, the perimeter.
Right.
With so many things. And it's so hard to be on that perimeter because you're so good and you're 99% better than the rest. But you're missing that one thing that kind of puts you to that next level. Like, I think 4th is the worst place.
In my case, it was 5th because but 4th place
but I
in
think,
the podium,
you know, like,
just off the podium. Oh man, I know.
That for me always is really the toughest. Like, and that's where most people, the 4th, 5th, 6th is where, and there's such a group of them, and I wonder what goes on mentally.
Looking back at all of this now, I mean, in my reflection of my career, I actually believe that being 4th place or 5th for the Olympics was the position that you really learn the most about yourself and can grow the most as a person, and it shows you a different side of life and about hard work. So
I get that, but you're saying that now.
I'm saying that now
years later, because you couldn't have told yourself that in the year and months that followed this darkness. And so I'm hoping that there's others that are listening to this who maybe are going through it, or who kind of realize they might be coming out of it. Or who fear it. You know, you have athletes right now who fear what retirement, what life after is going to be like. And so, if you don't mind, because this is the dark part. Yeah. Because going from this elite athlete to being completely overweight. Yeah. Is that fair? Like, so, an 85-pound weight gain of you eating and drinking and watching TV and staying in bed. Like, it's so drastic. I can't even visualize it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and this happened over the course of a year. Like I went from a super fit, 19, 20, 21% body fat, like athlete, which at the time was like where I needed to be. I had an 8-pack. I was, the fittest I'd have ever been in my life or I had ever been in my life to an obese person. So I the most I ever weighed myself was 200. I was just under 230 pounds. And it like the weight was just a reflection of how I felt about myself. It was just, I wanted to punish myself. I overate to fill a void, an unfillable void, because it's all I could do. It's all I could do. It took me I would say about 6 months post retirement. In that time frame, like I was offered a job to coach the Ontario Freestyle team. So I announced my retirement that following March. And Ontario Freestyle was like, ooh, we're losing our coach this year. Let's bring her in. We're going to train her. So I went through like a super quick, it wasn't quick. I did all the work, but I advanced through my coaching levels very quickly, sort of under the mentorship of Ontario Freestyle. I started coaching. Mm-hmm. I had dreams of going to school. I wanted to be a physiotherapist. I wanted to work with athletes in one way, shape, or form. But at that stage, I was like, I might as well coach because I need to make money somehow. And I'm really good at this sport, so I'm just going to stay in it on a different spectrum, I guess. But so I got into coaching. And so like 6 months post Olympics, I was full on coaching the team. I was in Whistler. And that's kind of when I started to not realize that I was super overweight, but like I had some awareness that my lifestyle was unhealthy, to say the least. So,
but did you not have your mom or like your parents? Like
nobody really knew what to say. Like
they didn't know how to. Okay.
Yeah, no one really knew. Like I pretty much, I remember telling people, I can't talk about it. Don't talk to me about it. Be like, I can appreciate that you're upset too and that this affects you, but I don't know what to say and I can't talk about it. So we just kind of like, I never dealt with it. I never, ever dealt with it. So
there's constantly an elephant in the room that you're just choosing to let sit there.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, the elephant was more present for, I think, my family and friends than for me. Like I just like, I had to like literally just let it go in some way because I didn't know.
Get that, but you've got your siblings and your parents who are watching you suffer.
Yes.
Understand that you're in pain and are dealing with this loss, right? You've retired, you've lost your identity. Yeah. And then at the same time watching your health take a drastic turn, right? To see this woman that is in the best shape of her life and destroying, I don't want to say it, but destroying it.
Yeah.
And were there relationships? Was there romance? Like, was there
at the time? I had a boyfriend at the time when all this was when I was doing all this. Now he had his own athletic goals too that kind of came crumbling down, both of us together, because he tore his ACL. He used to play baseball for the Baltimore Orioles. I can't talk. Baltimore Orioles. And we ended up just kind of sort of in this downward spiral together. I was staying at my mom's during the dark times. I lived there still. But then we like moved in together and I was in a relationship. It was a very unhealthy one. I ended up marrying this person. And
while you're still...
Yeah. So I was like looking for something in my life to bring me like happiness and joy, I guess. I mean, looking at the time, I was like very much in love with this person. He did not treat me very well. I probably didn't treat him very well either, to be fair. We
just going through the worst times of your life.
It was really
together.
bad. Yeah. Well, I mean, like there was like, I guess, I guess it would have been, so where are we? 2006. I got married in 2008. So 2 years later, we got married. You know, I was just kind of coasting through life, like just doing the grind, the daily grind, just like waking up, doing my work, eating, drinking, acting like an irresponsible person, and then going to bed and waking up again, feeling like crap, probably hungover, eating, drinking, coaching. I was responsible for athletes at this time, and I was trying to like, I actually realized that I had a knack for it, and that I was actually producing athletes and connecting with them in a different way, because my coaching style was more feel-based. It was more, you know, I wanted to make connections with the athletes and see how they felt about things and use that knowledge to help direct them. Whereas it wasn't like, for me, my entire life was all technical. It was like technical skiing. There was no emotions involved.
You coached how you wished maybe you had been coached.
Yeah. Maybe. Yeah. So, but at the development level, when you're dealing with like 14, 15, 16-year-olds, they connect with that immediately. So they feel supported, and then in turn, they want to work for you. Mm-hmm. It's not just technical all the time. I mean, there is a tremendous amount of technical ski ability, but there's also that other part. So, I realized that that was good.
The coaching part was good.
The coaching part
was
good. So
that's good. The one time of the day where you were not on the couch eating, drinking, or what you were able to accomplish with these athletes was great.
Yeah, but I discounted that because I thought I was a piece of shit. Am I allowed to swear on this?
Yeah, you can. Yeah.
I had like really felt like unworthy of all the things. So So I got married. I was in a toxic relationship at this time. My job, I mean, was probably the only good thing that was happening. But at the same time, like, I was so overweight. I wore like an extra large ski suit. I couldn't even keep up with the kids. Like, I couldn't lead by example. So there was like a ceiling to where I could take the team and where I could take the kids. And there was a moment in my life, I had discovered that my husband was cheating on me, and it was like this whole dramatic thing. And I like woke up one day and I looked at myself in the mirror, and I didn't recognize who I was looking at all. I had like this massive face. This body that was unrecognizable. It was like one of the first times I realized that I was fat. And this was like maybe 3 years later. I didn't even realize I was fat. It never crossed my mind, even though I had to buy a whole new wardrobe. I was like, yeah. I remember walking, because we traveled so much with the team still, because I was coaching provincial level. You still travel quite a bit. I couldn't walk down the aisle of an airplane without hitting every single person that was sitting there, because I was so wide that like I wouldn't be able to walk through there. Anyways, I looked at myself in the mirror and I said, Elisa, what the F are you doing? And that voice was so strong, and that question was so deep inside of me. It was like, for the first time, like my inner spirit was crying out, and I heard it, and I was able to listen to it.
Did you cry at that moment? Like, because I know that, because you just said like that inner spirit, right? Yeah. Because you had already mentioned when you saw the coming in 13th result, that your soul died. Yeah. So you have a sense of your soul died, and then to have 3 years later, the spirit awaken. Was it almost like a rebirth? Like you had lost one part, and then there was 100%. A rebirth of something saying, okay, we're going to start this again.
100%. Like oftentimes people, I've heard, change happens in a variety of ways. Some people change is like very slow, incremental, and other times there's like a massive explosion that creates chaos and change. So like the Olympics was one of them, and this moment, even though it was so small, was another one. So I like literally from that point on, I was like, oh my God, who are you? And then I started to figure that out.
Okay. as we're helping others, and there are people like they have it's that aha moment, right?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So you're looking in the mirror, you don't recognize yourself. There's this burning new energy kind of coming through. Like, how do you then take those first steps? You leave the bathroom.
Yeah.
What are the first steps that you take? Like, this is where I find this is where life lessons are happening. Like, what part of knowledge did you take with you to be like, okay, what's the first thing I'm going to do?
That's a really good question. I had no idea. And I think just trusting in that voice was enough for me to carry on with my day. I probably existed in the exact same way that I normally did for a few days anyways. I started to piece together, what do I want my life to look like? I can't even believe my life looks like this right now. What do I want it to look like? And I started to, I don't like the word goal setting, but I started to like think about where I want to be in 5 years. It was not in that place that I was. So I actually took a journal and I started to journal. Now, I also was really fortunate enough to be connected with my spiritual gangster. Her name's Adele Stratton. She's a holistic healer. She's a mental coach, life coach. And I started seeing her. And that's when I started like journaling, and basically was the start of me bringing awareness to my thoughts and to my beliefs about myself. That was the start. And I mean, I did that for like a year. I didn't leave my husband right away. I stuck around for, I don't know.
Did he know that you
months.
had this aha moment?
No. Nobody knew except for Adele. Okay. I call her Yoda, by the way. Yeah. She's my Yoda. Nobody knew because I didn't know what I was feeling. And there, like back in 2009, 2010, I know that's not that long ago, the spirituality was not as open and freely discussed as it is today. So like, I didn't really know who to talk about this stuff to. So Adele was like, perfect. And yeah, I started journaling and I would write down the most horrendous things. She basically asked me to write down what I thought about myself. What were my thoughts? And like, it was pretty bad. Like, you're a disgusting pig. You're an effing loser. No one's ever going to love you. All these things. And I would just write them down. I'm like, holy crap, this is bad. I'm thinking really bad stuff. I had no idea I was even thinking these things. And then it led to me writing down my beliefs about myself, which were also very bad. And then how I got out of the dark days is I became aware of what my thoughts were and how bad they were, and B, I started practicing stopping them. It wasn't like I could change them right away either, but when I heard myself saying, like, I would drop, I don't know, a pencil on the ground and be like, oh, you're an idiot. You're such a loser. I'm like, well, why would I even say that? I dropped a pencil and it made a noise and someone looked at me. You know what I mean? And I would punish myself with these like internal thoughts. And I know there are thousands, millions of people out there that are in that same place. Like, you make a little tiny mistake. So I started replacing those moments with, oops. It sounds so simple. It sounds so simple, yeah. But like, that is like where it started. And then it like, you know, I don't want to say snowballed. There was a snowball effect, but it kind of is like that. You're able to catch yourself more and more. Now, as I was doing this, I started to gain a confidence in a real life setting that I had never experienced before, because I had confidence in skiing. Yeah. But remember, I had like the blinders on. So now I'm like living my life in this world, and I'm like supposed to be a responsible adult. I'm acting like a child. I'm thinking like the worst thoughts ever, but now I'm finally able to see there's a different way. So that's when I had the confidence to leave my husband. I moved in with my mom. I was 30 years old. I'm like, Mom, I'm moving in. And she was like, yay, I'm so happy.
That's the best response from a parent.
I know, right?
That really, yeah.
That I started running. I hated going to the gym. I hated it when I was on the team. I hated lifting weights. There was, So I was like, what am I going to do? How am I going to be fit? So I didn't have a lot of money. I had runners though. So I just started running, and I basically
at 230 pounds, it's hard to just start running. Did
it was
you start
more of a walk run.
Okay, I was going to say. I'm thinking you walked
run.
for a bit, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So luckily I was exposed to some very high level trainers in the sport. So I was still coaching at this point. I had been recruited to Alberta Freestyle, so I was actually coaching the Alberta Mogul team, which was a completely different ballgame, way more support over there. I had an awesome team, awesome parents, great association. Not like Ontario was bad or anything. It was just a very different vibe.
Mindset.
Yeah. So there was this one trainer, I was telling him, I'm like, yo, I'm running and I'm dying. Like, can you give me one tip? I won't take up much of your time. Just give me one tip. And he's like, okay, here's my tip. Get a heart rate monitor and don't let your heart rate go over 180 minus your age. So I was 30. So he's like, don't let your heart rate go over 150. And I was like, I think my heart rate's at like 200 when I'm running. I'm like, this is going to be hard. He's like, don't let your ego get involved. Just walk. As soon as your heart rate's at 150, walk. And I was like, all right, I'm doing it. And it like kept me essentially like in my fat burning zone. I was like, I didn't know any of this at the time, but well, I did, but
and that's going to vary.
Really...
Like, I want people to kind of think that through. It's going to vary depending on what is needed. You needed to just shed weight.
I needed to shed weight. I needed to feel good in my body. I needed to feel good running. And that's when I actually fell in love with running. Because before I was like, I was just doing it. And then when I took a step back and slowed down, I realized like it became sort of like a meditation for me. It became my outlet, and just staying in that fat burning zone, if you will, like staying at my aerobic threshold was so beneficial for my brain and for my body. And it helped. I didn't really lose weight running for the first little bit. I did fall in love with it. It wasn't until I decided, this was probably in 2011. So like a year later, again, I'm a slow moving snail with these life lessons, but I changed my diet. So I was like, okay.
So you were running, but you were still drinking and eting?
Maybe
not drinking as much, but...
I would say I drank less. I ate less. I wasn't gaining weight anymore. I was maybe losing a little bit of weight. I know, in all honesty, I was probably losing weight. It was like slow. But then I was like, okay, Elisa, you do nothing slowly. Let's drastically change again. So I was feeling I was actually feeling internal pain in my gut. I was having like symptoms of irritable bowel syndrome. I thought maybe I was a celiac. So I was like, you know what? I went for testing. I did all the tests, the colonoscopies, the this, the that. I was in the hospital getting injections for like nausea, because stress manifests in your body in everybody differently. And for me at this point, like I was leaving my husband, I was moving in with my mom, I'm 30 years old. So there's that voice saying, oh, you're a loser. And then there's this other voice saying, no, you're doing, you need to change your life. You need to set, a new standard for yourself. And so I was change in all forms for me is a stress, whether it's a positive change or a negative change.
But they didn't come back and tell you that you had irritable bowel syndrome. Did they come back and say you need to change the way you're eating?
No, no, not at all. They were like, you're essentially, they said I had signs of irritable bowel, but, the medical, I'm not going to bash the medical system, but it's easy to give someone a pill to get rid of the symptom versus like make serious change. So what I decided to do was I cut out everything out of my diet, like all gluten, dairy, sugar, so hard, alcohol, caffeine, processed foods. So basically all I ate was like meat, fish, nuts, vegetables, and some fruit for a year. I did that for a year. And people thought I was crazy, and I didn't care. I was literally eating clean. There's a lot of clean eating diets out there. This was like the cleanest of the clean, and that's when the weight just like melted off. Not only that, just eating that way created the most mental, like I had the most mental clarity ever in my life. And I connected with myself during that year. It was a spiritual journey. It was like a physical transformation, but it was literally the most life-changing thing. It taught me more about myself than anything that the Olympics or my sports career ever could. I am responsible for myself. That's what it taught me, essentially.
You know, there's people that are getting to watch this segment on YouTube, right? So they see this beautiful, blonde, gorgeous woman in front of them, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Hi, guys.
You know, it's so interesting to kind of hear that from you, knowing where it came from. Mm-hmm. Would you say now, so you're about 5 years out from that full transformation, would you say, around that?
Yep.
So, and the 5-year mark is usually a big, you know, in any relationship. There's like 5 years is a pretty good, like, have you maintained that? Where's the consistency? I know with your podcast, you're still very spiritual.
Yeah.
And sometimes I feel even your podcast are almost your therapy sessions.
Yeah.
Is that fair to say?
Yeah. Well, I bring Adele, the Yoda, on. We actually do.
Yoda, yeah.
We do therapy sessions because I want to share all the things that I've learned. So yeah, at the 5-year, I mean, I've gone through some change. So I decided that I didn't want to be traveling so far away coaching anymore. So a couple of years ago, actually 2 years, basically this summer, I quit my job coaching. I had no idea what I was going to do. It was like
it's
another
11 years.
stress.
You were almost 11 years coaching, right?
I was just over 11, almost 12. Anyways, I went through this other huge life transformation. So these lessons were presenting themselves to me in a different way. You know, sometimes it's hard to recognize them when they come back because I haven't necessarily learned from them 100% or let them go. So it was like all these like things coming back around. And, but I was in a place where I could see or at least recognize them for what they are, not necessarily do anything about it, or I didn't necessarily know what to do, but I knew that this was happening, and that alone changed my reaction to everything. At this point, that's kind of why I wanted to start the podcast, was because like all these little steps, I mean, we've kind of fast forwarded through the last 15 years, but I've experienced a lot of crazy stuff. And with this, I don't want to say new sense of awareness, but like with my perspective on life these days, I just naturally noticed that I connected with a lot of people, and I started Instagram, and I was connecting with a lot of people on my Instagram account. That grew really quickly. And I blog a little bit there. So I started the podcast just to like say a little bit more about my life. So there's a lot of like deep, dark secrets. People like listen and they're like, I feel like I know you. You're like my best friend. And I'm like, well, you do know me. Yeah. Because I say very, very intimate things.
Yeah. And you could watch on your Insta stories. You'll see her having her coffee and her breakfast. Like you share. Yeah. Is it therapeutic for you to share so much of your life now? Or it keeps you accountable, or like, because, you know, you can do podcasts and you can do Instagram, and I'm not as, you know, I don't think I've done one with me getting up in the morning having a coffee with no makeup and my hair in a bun. Yeah. You know, like you're very open.
Yeah. I think it's, I never thought of it that way. It just kind of evolved into what it is. I like making connections with awesome people, and through the Instagram platform I've been able to do that. I've met people all over the world. In fact, this morning I just met this guy from Cape Town. He's awesome, and like we share a lot of things in common, and you know, that's it. So I get to learn through his experiences as well.
Is he cute? Is he single? Like, are you
I don't know.
Are you dating?
I am not dating. I'm not dating.
For more
by
information, you can message her.
Yeah.
Are you looking forward to dating again? Do you think you're in that capacity now, in a healthy state, that you find yourself in the right kind of a relationship?
I have post-divorce, I did date someone for 5 years, and then I dated this other amazing person for about a year. We are still friends now. But I decided that I wanted to work on my relationship with myself. And that sounds so, I don't know, cliche or something these days, but really I don't think I'm ready, or when I decided to do this, I didn't think I was ready to just go into a relationship because I didn't want someone else to fill my cup. I needed to learn the tools to fill my own cup, period. So, it's not to say that I'm not looking. I do get asked out every now and then, but I'm just, I don't know, I really enjoy my life right now. I'm living in such a unique way.
It's a great way to be. And you say that with such a big, vibrant smile. If you had, because I've got to wrap this up, but if you had a piece of advice to give to, maybe let's go to your 14-year-old self as you're heading into this, so that I can give it to other young athletes so that they learn that life is more than just their sport. Like, what would you say?
I would say to my 14-year-old self, ooh, that's deep. That's so
well, that's
deep.
Where the change happened, right?
Yeah.
It was where life...
I would probably say a million things to my 14-year-old self, but if there's one thing, it would be to trust your instincts. Listen to your instinct. That's it. The world is always feeding you information, and I was living my life possibly based on other people's belief and what the world expected of me as an athlete, instead of listening to myself and trusting in myself.
I think you trusted in yourself most when you were 30, looking into that mirror kind of going.
Yeah.
That for me seems like that biggest trust moment.
Yep.
I'm going to find myself again.
Yep. And even when things are going bad right now, which they do, let me tell you, I have to snap out of it by bringing that awareness back in and being trust in yourself.
Yeah. And it's just an oops sometimes rather than this negative thought, because it's not, you don't just do one quick fix and it's good. It's a constant, there's no magic pill.
Yeah.
It's constantly having
constant.
It's constant work, but it's good work.
It's fabulous.
Because you're sitting here just vibrant and glowing and saying it was all definitely worth it. People can find you where? I know you're on Instagram.
Yes.
People can find the podcast.
So on Instagram, my account is at Elisa Kurylowitz. Should I spell that?
It'll be written.
It'll be written
no,
somewhere.
People have,
and then my podcast is on iTunes. It's on Google Play. It's called Elisa Unfiltered, Living Life Out Loud. I'm actually I actually am taking a 8-week summer break.
Good for you.
Just to give myself some time to live my life a little bit. It does take up a lot of time. But it's a very cool podcast. It is all about me, guys. It's all about me.
It is what it is. I did.
It is what it is. I know.
I did it. I did it.
Yeah.
It was really good because I did it just not long after I had left.
Yes.
Right. And
yes.
so sometimes it's therapy. You're telling your story or where you're coming from, or the trials and tribulations, or the roller coaster ride.
Yeah. 100%.
We all definitely have it, and you've been able to get that out from a lot of people. Yeah. It's so nice. So wait, you were 14 when I think we started.
Yeah. I'm going to carry the 8 minus the 1. Hey, we're still young.
It was nice to be able to have the interview session again in a very different setting. And there you have it. Thanks so much. It was great. And once again, thanks so much for listening to Living Your Life with Leanne Lang. And once again, brought to you by Extension Marketing. Have a great day. I can't even write it one.
Good. Beauty. I need some of this wire. I wanted to reach for it like a million times, but...